This is the 7th of 30 episodes, and you may be asking yourself, is it too late to join NAPOD Pomo? Nope. Welcome to the official podcast for National Podcast Post Month. My name is Jennifer Navarrete, and I'm the founder of NAPOD Pomo, and this podcast is your guide to navigate through the 30-day Global Podcast Challenge. One of the things I really appreciate about NAPOD Pomo is that it doesn't matter when you discover it or when you join. As long as you have 30 podcast episodes by the end of November 30th in whatever time zone you live in around the world, then you will have successfully completed the challenge. So if you're hearing about this for the first time, then grab a friend and join the podcasting fun. You'll be glad you did. Now let's dig into a frequently asked question. How often should you release an episode? Well, I consult with first-time podcasters and I give them the reality check about how much time and work it takes to develop and continue to release episodes. The fact is, the idea of podcasting is a romantic one, but the reality is it's a whole lot of work. So I always recommend creating a standalone podcast series. Think of a 6-part series or a 10-part series of your greatest hits. What do I mean by greatest hits? Well, if you have blog posts or newsletter articles or social posts that have done really well, the stats show that these are pieces of content that have really resonated with your readers, then those are your greatest hits. Your audience has already told you that they're interested in those topics from you. So expand upon that content for your podcast series. One caveat here is I don't recommend time-sensitive topics, not daily news topics. What you want are evergreen topics that are as good today as they were when you originally posted them and will be just as valuable to people who will discover it for the first time in years to come. Why? Let's say that you get into podcasting and after you're done with this standalone evergreen series, realize you just don't really like podcasting. Then because you only announced that this was a standalone podcast series, well, you've got no further commitment beyond this initial run versus announcing the podcast launch as an ongoing show and then abandoning it a few months later. Plus, because you created evergreen content that represents you, your brand, your company well, it will continue to work for you for years to come. Consider it your audio calling card. And let's say that you do fall in love with podcasting, then this first standalone series becomes season 1, and then you continue on with season 2. Speaking of seasons, I personally am a big fan of podcast seasons because it allows you to look at your annual calendar to see where there are some hard no's in place. What's a hard no? Well, that traditional family vacation you take in August or December, or if you have an annual business event that occurs every March. These are things that are on your calendar that you have blocked off, and adding podcast production, recording, and releasing into that really would put pressure on you unnecessarily. So this gives you a break in between seasons when you build a podcast that fits into your existing work and life schedule. Because as you will discover, podcasting is a whole lot of work. So it should fit into your business and personal life in a way that will increase the chance for longevity. This is a far more practical and sustainable approach than saying, I'm going to do a podcast 5 days a week all year long, or I'm going to release episodes once a week from now until forever. That's not to say that weekly shows aren't something you should consider. That is the traditional podcast model after all. However, I can tell you that the projects that I work on typically are with very busy entrepreneurs with limited time. So batch recording and releasing these in season works really well for them. So how often should you release your podcast episodes? Well, that's entirely up to you. Take a look at what NAPOD Pomo sponsor Blueberry podcast hosting has to offer you. Learn more by visiting blueberry.com. Use promo code NAPODPOMO for 1 month of free hosting. And if you're looking for community, join the daily NAPOD Pomo support sessions hosted by Creative Work Hour. Connect with your fellow NAPOD Pomo community on social media platforms like Facebook, X, or Hive. Links for everything is in the show notes. In the next episode, we're going to look at content ownership and what that means for you as a podcaster.